This video is about solving proportions, so go ahead and fill this foldable in with me as we go, and then do the example problems with me at the end of this. Okay, so we've learned about what a proportion is. Basically, it's just two equal ratios. And so to set up a proportion, you want to start by setting up the word ratio. So for example, you might have the number of yellow marbles compared to the total marbles. That would be yellow over total. That could be the words you use to set up your ratio. Then you're going to set up the actual proportion. That's using your 4 boxes. And then to solve it, you're going to use cross product. So you want to cross multiply. After you cross multiply, you're going to set up an equation. Remember, an equation just has an equal sign. And then you're going to solve by dividing. All right, so those are the 5 steps you use to solve an equation. In the last video, we learned how to do this first part right here. Set up the word ratio and then set up the proportion. So now we're doing steps 3 through 5. Let's look at the example they give us. There are 3 dogs for every 10 students. How many dogs are there for 200 students? All right, so step 1 was the word ratio. So what are we comparing here? What words? We're comparing the number of dogs to the number of students. All right, and then that's what we want to use when we're setting up our boxes. The number of dogs to the number of students. And again, it really doesn't matter which one goes on top as long as you get your numbers next to the right words. Okay, so in the first part it says there are 3 dogs, so on top 3, compared to 10 students, so 10 goes on bottom. And notice I put the 3 and the 10 together because these go together, 3 dogs for 10 students. I want to know how many dogs there are for 200 students. All right, so the 200 is the number of students. That's going to go on bottom next to students. And the number of dogs is what I don't know. I'm going to call that X, or any letter you want to use for that. And then it says I want to cross multiply. Well, cross multiply, some of you may have used this in 5th grade, but this is really a butterfly. I think some of you may have learned it like that. But you're going to multiply really just across diagonally. All right, and so I want to just show that that's what I'm doing. So I'm saying that 3 times 200 is equal to 10 times X. Well, really, 3 times 200 is actually 600. And 10 times X, I don't know, so I'm just going to write it as 10X. And then the last step is to divide. All right, so basically what I'm going to divide by is what is the number here next to my X. I know that 600 is equal to 10 times something. The X is the part I'm trying to figure out. I need to know what that something is. Well, this is telling me multiplication, 10 times X, but I don't know what that part is. So in order to solve that, I do the opposite, which would be to divide. So if I divide both of this, if I divide 600 by 10 now, 600 divided by 10, you're not sure what that is, you can work it out completely. 10 will go into 600. It'll go into 60 once, or sorry, 6 times. And when I subtract 60, I get 0. Bring down my 0. 10 will go into 0, 0 times. I don't have anything left to bring down. My answer is 60. So what that tells me is that 60 dogs has the same ratio as 3 dogs to 10. So 60 dogs to 200 students is the same thing as 3 dogs to 10 students. So if I had 200 students, I could expect to have 60 dogs. And basically, those 3 steps, what I just did was I multiplied across, and then I divided. Some people call this baseball, bat, and ball. So you multiply the 2 numbers, that's like your baseball bat, it's the long part. And then you multiply by you divide, by the number you don't know, the 10. We're going to practice this, so if you're still a little confused, just hang in there. All right, so let's go back to the problems we did in an earlier video. Look for the part where you set up some proportions. So in this proportion, we're already set up. We have tape players to the number of hours. We can see that 15 over 6 is the same thing as x over 40. That's our proportion. And so step 3, after we set up the proportion, was to cross multiply. All right, so I'm looking for the numbers that are across from each other. So 15 times 40 is the first step. I want to multiply those two numbers. So if I don't know what that is, I'm going to have to just work that out. 15 times 40, 0 times 5, and 0 times 1. Start with a 0 on your second line. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry your 2. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. So when I add this up, I get 600. So I know my baseball bat, right, this long part, diagonal part, is 600. And that is equal to this cross product right here, 6 times x. Well, I don't know what 6 times x is. So since I can't multiply 6 times x, what I'm going to do is divide by the 6 instead. So that's the ball part where you divide by the ball. So I need to divide 600 by 6. And some of you will do this in your head, but if you can't, 6 will go into 6 one time. I bring down a 0. 6 will go into 0, 0 times. Bring down that last 0. 6 will go into 0, 0 times. So 100. So for this problem, x is going to equal 100. Okay? And what that means is that I can expect the assembly line to make 100 tape players in 40 hours. All right, look at 2, number 2. So in this problem, they were talking about the amount of rainfall in hours. So 2 inches, it rained 2 inches in 1 hour. And so we want to know how many hours it would take to rain 12 inches or 1 foot. So I want to start by cross multiplying. So here, notice it doesn't matter where the x is. I'm always going to start by multiplying the numbers that are diagonal from each other. So these are diagonal. 1 times 12 is just 12. And that's equal to 2 times x. Okay, you can put the dot there. You can just put them next to each other. They both mean multiply. And then I can't multiply 2 times x because I don't know what x is. So I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide. So if I divide 2 into 12, I get 6. So my answer is x equals 6. And in this case, 6 what? 6 hours. So if they wanted to know how long it would take to rain 12 inches, it would be 6 hours. Okay, and this next problem, we had the number of hours in a week. All right, so we're looking to figure out how many hours. Oh, this was the one about her practicing her cooking skills. All right, so I'm going to start by cross multiplying. So find the numbers that are diagonal from each other. Start there. 17 times 5. 5 times 7 is 35. Carry your 3. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3 is 8. So 85. I know that 85 is equal to something, 2 times something, because that would be the other cross product. All right, and then I don't know, 2 times something, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So since I can't multiply these, I'm going to divide by 2. So 85 divided by 2. 2 will go into 8 4 times. I subtract, I get 0, and now I bring down my 5. 2 will go into 5 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. All right, and then I'm going to have a remainder of 1. I can make that into a fraction, or I can add a decimal. Bring up my decimal, bring down my 0, and keep going. 2 will go into 10 5 times. So 2 times 5 is 10, and then I'm done. All right, so if we interpret what we just figured out here, x is equal to 42.5 what? 42.5 hours. All right. So in a 5-week period of time, she's practicing cooking 42.5 hours. All right, and then the last one, this question was, what was this about? Oh, it was about the number of correct answers compared to the total number of questions on a test. So we know that her ratio of correct to total was 3 to 4. So out of 36 questions, how many did she get right? So to solve this, I'm going to look for the numbers that are diagonal from each other. So that would be the 3 and the 36. I'm going to start by multiplying those. 36 times 3. 6 times 3 is 18. Carry your 1. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. So I know that this times this is 108. And that's going to be equal to this, something times 4. Okay, I don't know what that something is, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide. So 4 will go into 10 2 times. When I subtract, I get 2. Bring down the 8. 4 will go into 28 7 times. So my answer is 27. So x, that value I was looking for, is equal to 27. 27 what? 27 correct answers. All All right, and again, basically to solve a proportion after you have it set up, okay, you're going to look for those numbers that are diagonal from one another. You can think of that as a baseball bat if it helps you remember. So 3 times 36 is what I did first. And then the next step is to divide. All right, so what have I not used yet? I haven't done the 4. I haven't used the 4, so I'm going to divide by the 4. Or if you want to think of it as cross products, because that's really how you're solving the proportion. This times this has to equal this times this. So 3 times 36 was 108. 4 times x is 4 times something I don't know. So in order to find what I don't know, I'm going to work backwards. Since I can't multiply, I'm going to divide. And so when I divide it, I get 27. And 27 what? Well, it would have gone right here. You can see that that's with the word correct, so that must mean 27 correct answers. All right, so good luck solving proportions.